Today we're going to be looking at Color Lux in the color red. So the interesting thing about these Color Lux dyes is that they're actually meant to be used in the shower on wet hair. So basically every time you put it on your hair, it'll get darker and darker and darker. But also what you can do is take the dye directly from the container and apply it to dry hair, and hypothetically it should turn out like the darkest swatch on the bottle, and then you can use it to help maintain your color as well. Either way works totally fine. So my swatches are human hair swatches, but the only swatch that is virgin hair is the number 4 black swatch. The rest have been chemically colored or bleached at some point in their lifetimes. I also have them labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I do different pictures and video clips near the end of the video, so I just have the numbers here to help us keep track of each swatch. 1 is green. Red and green are across from each other on the color wheel, so I wanted to see how well the red would cover the green. 2 is gray. 3 is a natural red. Again, 4 is black. So 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So like I said, I'm going to take the dye directly out of the container and I'm going to put it at the top of each swatch. Now for my other videos, I normally do a diluted version on the bottom, but since this is meant to be used on wet hair, I will actually just wet the hair and put this on, and we'll see how that turns out as well. Please keep in mind that everyone's hair is different, so everyone's hair will take color differently, plus different monitors and screens and such will make colors look a little different, especially undertones, so please just use my video as a reference for how this could possibly turn out for you. Alright, so like I said before, I'm just going to wet the bottom of each swatch with a little water bottle, and I'll apply the dye directly onto there, and hypothetically it should turn out at least a few shades lighter than the directly applied dye. Alright, so usually I will let these sit for quite a long time so that the swatches can absorb the color, but since it's meant to be used in the shower, I know most people are not taking like 3-hour long showers. So for this video, I'm going to use the maximum recommended time, which is 25 minutes, and then I will rinse these out. When they're dry, I'll meet you back here and we'll do our comparisons. So on the back of the bottle, it claims that if you put it over brown hair and you have any blonde in it. Only the blonde will take the color and not the brown. But I'm not sure that's entirely true because most of these have taken dye. So if you plan to use this in the shower, hypothetically, you'd want to look at the bottom part of these swatches. And the darkest brown that I've got does still look relatively brown and not super duper red. There is a slight red undertone. So I think if you had dark brown hair or even black hair with blonde, then you'd for sure only have really the blonde pieces taking color. But anything lighter definitely has a chance of taking the red color. But I am thinking maybe if you don't use it for the full 25 minutes, that there's a less of a chance of the brown turning red if that's the look that you're going for. Otherwise, it does seem pretty pigmented, which I think is great because it gives you the option to put it in for less time if you need to. So one was originally green. That actually covered very beautifully, both on the top and the bottom of the swatch. As usual, when I do reds over greens, what normally happens is it turns into a slightly more natural looking red, and that's exactly what happened here. Now, it's not a extremely natural red, but in comparison to especially the blonde swatches, it does have a slightly more brownish neutral look. 2 was originally gray. That is not too far off from the blonde swatches, but it is a little bit darker, and I'm having a harder time deciphering between the top and the bottom. They look very similar. 3 was the natural red, and honestly, it doesn't look too different from how the brown swatches took the color. Kind of looks like it should be between maybe 6 and 7, like in here. I don't think the red undertone in the hair really played a part. 4 was black. As usual, it didn't take any color. So for the top part of number 5, it does look a little bit more red than the bottom, but both still look red. So you could use something like this to change the undertone of your brown if you don't want to bleach it. But I like to give a warning too. If your hair is natural and virgin, even if a color takes to your hair, when it comes to semi-permanents anyways, there is a chance that it will just wash out quickly. It all depends on your natural hair and the colors that you're using. It seems to me like a light brown is when you can really see more red than brown, because number 6 definitely looks more red than number 5, but it still looks relatively brown, whereas number 7 looks like a dark red, and it seems to have done really well over all of the swatches, even on the wet hair. I don't feel like I see a huge difference between 8, 9, and 10 either. Actually, even on number 12. 11 did turn out a little bit lighter than the rest of the more light brown blondie swatches, especially on the wet hair part. So you don't need your hair to be completely platinum if you did want to use this. But I will say I am surprised because the bottle makes it look like it would be a very deep red by the time you get to its full potential. And this technically should have been the full potential color, which is quite light in comparison to this anyways. And like I already said, basically, I don't see a huge difference between the first application and the direct dye application. So I would trust it to probably be more like the first and the third option. I think, at least from my experience, obviously something could happen that didn't happen for me, that could happen for you. But it seems for me that the color like this has to have a darker base to begin with. So it kind of looks like the number 7, but just something I wanted to point out. This is also a quite orange undertoned red. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit closer to a true red. I mean, once the dye took, it does look a little bit more true than when I was first applying it, but overall, still pretty orange. So I wanted to compare some of my more orangey reds for you guys today. So the first one is going to be Good Dye Young in the color Rock Lobster. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. Okay, so usually I kind of sit lower than the camera, so I can see different undertones sometimes that the camera won't see as much. So for the most part, they are extremely similar, but I don't know if it's my eyes, but the red from Color Lux does look a pinch more cool toned, like a little bit closer to a true red, but it's such a minute difference. I don't know if it really would matter too much. Otherwise, the other biggest difference I'm noticing is that the Rock Lobster seems to be a tad bit darker, but even when you dilute them, they are quite similar. So could be a good dupe for either of them, depending on what you're looking for. The other comparison I wanted to do today is Arctic Fox in the color Poison. So this is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. Alright, so once again, I'm seeing that the Color Lux Red is a touch less orange, and I feel like that is the most obvious from what I can see on the 11 and 12 swatch. On the 9 and 10, it's a lot harder to tell, at least from my perspective. And also, Poison seems to be a lot brighter on the Platinum swatch. On the darker blonde swatches, it's not as big of a difference, but you can see that the Color Lux Red is still a tad darker. So in this case, I do think the Good Dye Young Rock Lobster is a little bit closer of a dupe. So if you're looking for a color that is more so an orange, that has very, very red undertones, I would recommend Punky Color in the color Fire. I was gonna compare these two, but I realized that the Punky Color definitely looks a lot more orange in comparison. And if you want something with the same undertone or very similar undertones, but even darker than the Good Dye Young, I recommend Lunar Tides in the color True Lust. Obviously, I've not done all the reds in the world, at least not yet. But if I ever find anything similar to this, of course, I will compare it. But now I'd like to get into our before and after clips. Those, as well as any pictures or other video clips you see after this point, it will all be done in natural lighting. Because I do use natural lighting, sometimes the lighting environment between days can change a little, so if the before and afters look a little different from each other, that is why. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out, but just remember I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.